everybody, how's it going? I'm the Tmeister, and welcome back to Timbukton for episode 40 of the series. Holy crap, guys, we're already at episode 40. I can't believe it. So what we're going to be doing in this episode is we're going to be continuing with building Atwater. We're pretty much going to be finishing it up in this episode. I think I'd have to look again at like the layout of Atwater, but I believe we pretty much finish it up. And what this episode will entitle is a lot of like little commercial businesses such as restaurants, McDonald's, but we're gonna have a whole bunch of car dealerships in this part of town. As I was browsing through different buildings and stuff that I could plop down, a car dealership popped up in my menu, and I was like, oh, that is a perfect opportunity. It's a perfect location for those types of businesses, because Atwater is like a sort of transition borough between Timbukton's suburbs and its more like downtown core. So a lot of businesses are established in this place. So yeah, that's pretty much what's going to go on in this episode. A little bit more heavy detailing than I normally do. So that's going to be quite interesting. And you'll see at the end, like, I really like the way that this entire area turned out. It's really cool, and it's something new that I hadn't really done too much before. It sort of allowed me to change things up a little bit rather than just plopping down houses for once. So along this main 4-lane road right here is where all the businesses are, and in behind them, that's where we're going to place down some residential, and it's just going to be your normal residential. So the course of action I'm going to take to develop this part of town is I'm going to plop down all of the buildings that I want along this main road, and then I'm going to place down some residential in just a minute here. But the reason I do that is it's a lot easier to sort of visualize what you're building when you just plop down a bunch of buildings without detailing or any fancy things like that. And you could just zoom out and look at the area and sort of get an idea of like what the finished product is going to look like. So that's usually what I'll do when going into some pretty big builds. Well, I mean, I guess this is not really a big build by any means, but it's like an entire neighborhood, right? So to get the feel of the neighborhood, that's what I like to do. One thing that's pretty interesting about this part of town as well is we're breaking away from the grid system due to the terrain over here. The terrain in West Timbukton is a lot more jagged than along the coast. We're actually up on like a huge cliff and like a big hill. So it doesn't really show right now, like where I'm working on. What I'm working on right now at this very moment is quite flat, but on the other side of this main road, it gets quite steep in some places, so I have to break away from the grid and work with some pretty squiggly roads and stuff just to work with the terrain a little bit better. And of course, once you break away from the grid, I find that it's hard to get as much density out of your neighborhoods than, you know, when you're working downtown in those grid systems. So at this moment, guys, with the completion of Atwater, we're getting really close to finishing the Timbukton Peninsula. I'm guessing in the next like 3 episodes, we should be able to finish the entire peninsula before moving on to other projects. So at this point, I'm left with a little dilemma, and I want you guys to help me out here. So part of me wants to finish the Timbukton Peninsula once and for all, completely detailed, everything good to go, and then move on to something else. But part of me is kind of tired of like plopping down houses and buildings and stuff like that. And, you know, a part of me wants to start a new project, a new large scale, huge project that we can maybe make 3 episodes out of one thing. So here's what I'm proposing. I'm going to give you guys the choice of either, do you guys want to see me finish the peninsula, which, like I said, will probably take 3 episodes, and then we'll be done? Or would you guys rather watch me start a new project right away, and once we finish that project, we may go back and finish the peninsula? So I'm going to leave that up to you guys. It really doesn't matter to me, although I'm kind of leaning towards making like a new project. But I don't know. A lot of people have been requesting that I make a huge airport. And, you know, that's always something that I was anticipating doing in Timbukton. The only thing is the airport is like way in the outskirts of the city. So that's not really a problem. You know, I can go ahead and do that. I'm all for it, but it would probably take me a good episode to get everything prepared. I'm going to leave that up to you guys. But yeah, an airport would actually be really cool to get started on, honestly. But yeah. So let me know down in the comments, guys, if you want me to start on a new project or if you'd rather me finish the Timbukton Peninsula. And if you do choose to want me to start a new project, let me know what that big project should be. So just to give you guys a couple of examples, so a few things that I want to eventually get to is, number 1, an airport. Number 2 is I want to build a giant oil refinery in southern Timbukton. That's something that from day 1 of the Industries DLC being released, I wanted to build, because it's like one of the hardest things to build, and I want the oil refinery to be 100% working. You know, I want it to be productive and stuff. So obviously we're gonna have to like dedicate a couple of episodes to either build like some oil wells and stuff like that before we even get to the oil refinery. But anyways, that's just another example. Another pretty big example is a national park in northern Timbukton. Well, it's not going to be a national park per se. It's probably going to be more of like a provincial park kind of thing because it's like right outside the city. But that's another thing. So anyways, those are just 3 examples that I wanted to get into eventually. But if you guys have any other ideas, I'm totally open to that as well. And I mean, I'm pretty confident you guys can come up with some awesome topics because you guys always do. So back to the game. As you can see me plopping down right now, I am going to build a Honda dealership. And I've actually gone and explored the workshop and found like a bunch of Honda car models and stuff that I can plop down in the dealership. I want the dealerships to be as realistic as possible. You know, we're not going to have a bunch of Nissans in a Honda parking lot. However, I do end up plopping down a couple of like BMWs and Volkswagens and whatever. And that's just like used cars that people have traded in for a brand new Honda. You know, so typically in dealerships, you'll find those types of situations. So anyways, that's just a little bit of thought that went into those dealers. And just to mention this too, Timbukton is going through a little bit of a rough period for some reason. So number 1, I'm going through a death wave, as you can see on my population gauge. I think we were at like 65,000 people at one point, and you can see that has dropped quite a bit. But that is being fixed slowly, and as we progress in building stuff, I think it's slowly going to stabilize itself. But for some reason, crime is an issue in this area. I plopped down some police stations and fire stations. Like, I always make sure that my services are all up to par. But for some reason, crime is just through the roof in this neighborhood. So we'll just assume that this is just a rough part of town. Now with the main road being complete, like I said, we're going to work on some residential areas in behind and on the edge of this water here. And it's going to be a quite scenic area. because it's on this hill, everybody's going to have a nice view of the bay down below. So it's a pretty unique area. And here I'm going to make a sort of mixture of both old and new-ish. So it's going to be mostly old residential because it is on the peninsula, which was developed 100 years ago. However, there is going to be a little bit of some newer developments, as you can see me plopping down right now with these newer style apartments. These are more luxurious apartments with a nice view of the water, as you would expect in this type of situation. But for the most part, it's going to be much of the same houses I usually plop throughout town. As I was looking back and finishing up Atwater, I thought this area was a little barren, and I thought it was a perfect opportunity to plop down a little marina or something. It's sort of like on a little inlet right beside this bridge. It's nice and protected from the elements out in the bay. So a little marina was a pretty cool addition, I thought. I don't really go all out here. In some marinas around town, I've put a lot more effort and detail into them, and for this one I didn't really feel like it. I just thought that something simple would suffice. So anyways, with all that being said and done, guys, I really hope you enjoyed this episode 40 already. The series has been going on for more than a year now, and I'm really happy with the way it's progressing. I think it's pretty successful, and I'm anticipating continuing it until we finish the entire map. Going into this project, that was my ultimate goal. If it takes me another 2 years to get there, I'm totally willing to do whatever it takes to get there, assuming the game is still going to work. Sometimes I'm dealing with some pretty low FPS and crashing once in a while, and that's just a byproduct of having thousands of assets and mods. So I don't know, we might have to clean out the old workshop list one of these days. But anyways, guys, I just want to thank you once again for watching my videos. Also, be sure to subscribe for much more content coming down the pipe. And also, guys, as usual, until the next episode, please take care.